Jack had never imagined that his life would change so quickly. He was just another guy living in a small, cramped apartment in the city. Nothing special about his life. Worked a 9-to-5 job at a tech store. Spent his free time watching old movies, and every now and then, he'd order takeout. His apartment was barely furnished, with mismatched chairs and a couch that was more comfortable than it looked. It wasn't much, but it was his. One rainy evening, as Jack was returning home after a long day, he noticed someone standing outside his door. It was a woman, no. A girl, really. She looked out of place, like she didn't belong here. Was silver, almost shimmering in the rain, and her eyes had a strange, glowing hue. Her skin had a faint glow, as if it was radiating a soft light. Jack blinked, trying to focus, thinking maybe he was just tired. "Excuse me?" she said her. Voice soft, almost hesitant. Could I stay here for the night?" Jack was taken aback. He'd never seen this woman before, but something about her made him feel like he should help. Maybe it was the way she looked so lost, or the fact that she was standing there, in the rain, drenched and shivering. "Are you okay?" Jack asked, stepping closer. She nodded slowly, but there was a sadness in her eyes. "I don't have anywhere else to go," she said, looking around the hallway as if someone might be following her. "Just for tonight, please." Jack hesitated for a moment. He wasn't one to let strangers into his apartment, but something about her seemed ... different. He couldn't explain it. But he couldn't leave her out there either. "All right," he said finally, stepping aside. "You can stay on the couch for the night." The girl's face brightened up, and she gave him a small, grateful smile. "Thank you," she said softly, stepping past him into the warmth of the apartment. Jack didn't know what to make of her. She didn't seem dangerous, but there was something odd about her presence. She was beautiful, but not in the way anyone from Earth should be. Her features were striking sharp, almost alien. But it wasn't just her looks. There was an aura about her, something Jack couldn't quite place. She didn't seem like someone who belonged in a place like this. He led her to the couch, where she sat down and wrapped herself in a blanket. Jack watched her for a moment, feeling a bit awkward. He wasn't used to sharing his space with strangers, but she didn't seem to mind the quiet. "So, what's your name?" Jack finally asked, breaking the silence. "Lyra," she answered, her eyes softening as she looked at him. "I'm from far away. I just need a place to stay for a little while." Jack raised an eyebrow but didn't press for more details. She seemed to be hiding something, but he wasn't about to pry. It wasn't his business. She was just someone who needed help, and that's all he needed to know. Wasn't going to judge her. "All right," Jack said, sitting on his chair. "Across from her. I'll go grab some towels, and then I'll order some food. You look like you need to eat." Lyra nodded, her eyes brightening for the first time since she had walked in. "That sounds nice," she said, her voice soft but filled with gratitude, as Jack moved around the apartment. Preparing for dinner, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It wasn't just the way she looked. There was something in the air, a quiet tension, like there was more to her than what she was letting on. But Jack didn't mind. He had a soft spot for people who were in need, and she was clearly in a tough spot. Maybe tomorrow she'd be gone, and this would just be a strange memory. Jack ordered pizza and returned to the living room, handing Lyra a plate. She smiled softly, taking it from him with a quiet thanks. They ate in silence, both content, in their own way. But as the night went on, Jack noticed something even stranger. Lyra wasn't just eating to survive. She was savoring the food, her eyes closing in delight with each bite. "This is amazing," she said after a moment, setting the plate down. "I've never had food like this before," Jack chuckled. "It's just pizza. You're probably used to fancier stuff." She shook her head slowly, looking at him with a slight smile. "Not at all. I've never had anything like this. Simple, but ... perfect." Jack raised an eyebrow. "So, where are you from?" he asked, now genuinely curious. Lyra's smile faded for a moment, and her gaze shifted as if she was searching for the right words. "I'm from a very far place. A place you would never know. My family is very far away." Jack didn't press her any further. He could tell there was more to her story, but he wasn't about to force it out of her. He let the conversation drift to other topics, asking about her travels, her experiences. But every time he looked at her, Jack couldn't help but feel that there was something mysterious, something hidden beneath the surface. Eventually, they both settled down for the night. Jack gave Lyra the guest room, though he knew she would be sleeping on the couch. He had to admit that her presence had shifted the atmosphere of his apartment. It was like there was a weight hanging in the air, something unspoken. He couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to change. Whether for better or worse, he couldn't tell. The next morning, everything would become clearer, and Jack's life would never be the same again. The next morning, Jack woke up to the sound of his phone buzzing on the kitchen counter. Groggily, he rubbed his eyes and got out of bed, still not fully awake. It was still early, but the noise from his phone made it clear that something unusual was going on. As he walked to the kitchen, his mind wandered back to the previous night. Lyra had seemed so different. There was something about her. It didn't quite match the world he knew. He picked up the phone, still half dazed, and saw a string of missed calls from an unknown number. His first thought was that it might be a telemarketer or a wrong number. But then he saw the time on the screen. It was already past 9 a.m. Lyra had been sleeping on the couch, and Jack had to admit he felt a little uneasy about the whole situation. He didn't know her, didn't know where she came from or what she was really doing, but she had seemed kind, and she was in need of help. Jack had agreed to let her stay the night, now that the morning light was shining through his windows. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. There was a strange sense of tension hanging in the air. He decided to check the voicemail. When he pressed play, a deep voice echoed in his ear. "Mr. Jack Wilson," the voice said, calm but firm. "This is Kor, from the Galactic Council of the Zoroth Empire. I must inform you that you have been harboring a person of significant interest. Name is Lyra, and she is the daughter of Emperor Zoroth. You're instructed to meet with us immediately. Failure to comply will have consequences." Jack's heart skipped a beat. He replayed the message to make sure he heard it correctly. Lyra was the daughter of an emperor. What kind of joke was this? His mind raced as confusion and disbelief swept over him. Couldn't believe what he was hearing. Jack set the phone down on the counter, his hand shaking slightly. He had only met Lyra the night before. Now he was being told that she wasn't just some lost traveler, she was a princess, the daughter of an emperor. This was insane. He walked back to the living room and found Lyra sitting on the couch, looking out the window. Her silver hair shimmered slightly in the light, and her eyes seemed far away, as if she were lost in thought. But she looked so calm, so unbothered by what had just happened. It was almost like she was waiting for something. "Lyra," Jack said, his voice trembling. You never told me who you really are. What's going on?" "I got a message from someone claiming they're from some kind of Galactic Council. Said you're the daughter of an emperor." At the sound of his voice, Lyra turned to face him. Her expression was soft, but there was a slight sadness in her eyes, like she had been expecting this moment. "I didn't want to tell you," she said quietly. "I wasn't sure how you would react. I didn't want to get you involved in all of this, but I guess I don't have a choice anymore." Jack was still reeling from the shock. How is this even possible? Why would someone like you end up here on Earth? Lyra sighed deeply and looked down at her hands. "My father is Emperor Zoroth of the Zoroth Empire. He rules over countless worlds, but his power comes at a cost. There are enemies within the Empire who want to see him fall. I was sent here to keep me safe, but now it's too late." Jack was having a hard time keeping up. An emperor? An empire? It sounded like something out of a science fiction movie. But this wasn't a movie, it was his life. And somehow, Lyra was at the center of it all. "You, were telling me you're the daughter of an emperor and you came here to hide?" Jack asked, still struggling to grasp the full weight of what she was saying. Lyra nodded slowly. "I came here because it's the only place where no one would think to look for me. Earth is small. No one would ever expect the emperor's daughter to be hiding in a place like this. But now they know. They'll come for me, and if they find me, it won't just be me they hurt, it will be you too." Jack's stomach tightened. At the thought of being caught up in a galactic conflict, he didn't sign up for any of this. He was just an average guy trying to get through his day-to-day life. And now he was apparently a part of something far bigger than he could have imagined. He glanced out the window, trying to clear his head. I don't understand. Why me? Why did you come here to Earth? You could have gone anywhere. You could have gone to another planet. Lyra looked at him, her eyes soft with regret. It's complicated, my father. He has enemies everywhere. People who want to use me for their own purposes. I thought I could escape it all by coming here. But now I've brought the danger with me. Jack felt a pit form in his stomach. He had let a stranger into his home, and now he was being told that he was caught in the middle of a galactic power struggle. He didn't want any part of it, but he couldn't just turn his back on her either. She was asking for his help, and he wasn't the kind of person to walk away from someone in need. So, what do we do now? Jack asked, trying to keep his voice steady. How do we get you out of this? Lyra didn't answer right away. She stood up and walked over to the window, gazing out at the city below. I don't know yet. One thing is certain. If we stay here, they'll find me. And when they do, they'll destroy everything in their path to get to me. Jack stared at her, his mind racing. This was real. It wasn't some joke. Lyra wasn't just a strange woman from another world. She was someone with a past, a future, and a whole galaxy watching over her. I won't let them hurt you, Jack said, more to himself than to Lyra. I'll figure something out. We'll figure this out. Lyra turned back to him, her eyes filled with a quiet gratitude. Thank you, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Jack had no idea what he was getting himself into. But one thing was clear. His life had just been turned upside down, and there was no going back. Jack couldn't believe what was happening. Days ago, his life was ordinary, and now everything had turned upside down. He was sitting in his small, cluttered apartment, his mind racing with thoughts about Lyra and the strange message from the Galactic Council. His head was filled with questions, but there was one thing Jack knew for sure. He had to protect her. Lyra, I need to figure this out, Jack said, pacing back and forth. He rubbed his temples, trying to make sense of it all. They're going to come for you. How are we supposed to stop them? Lyra sat on the couch, her silver hair glowing softly in the sunlight that streamed through the window. She looked calm, but Jack could tell she was just as worried as he was. She had known this was coming, but Jack hadn't. He was just an ordinary guy, thrust into something much bigger than himself. I don't know, Jack, Lyra replied quietly. I've been running for a long time. My father's enemies are everywhere, and they'll stop at nothing to find me. I don't want to put you in danger, but there's no way to escape them. The only choice is to leave Earth. Leave Earth, Jack repeated. What are you talking about? How can you just leave everything behind? You can't just run away forever. Lyra shook her head, her eyes filled with a mix of sadness and regret. I didn't want to drag you into this, Jack, but now that I'm here, they'll know. They'll come for me, and they won't stop. It's not just about me anymore. It's about everyone I care about. You'll be in danger too. Jack stopped pacing and looked at her. He wasn't sure what to feel. Part of him wanted to run, to forget about all of this, and go back to his simple life. But another part of him, the part that had led her into his home in the first place, couldn't just turn his back on her now. You don't have to go alone, Jack said, his voice more firm than he felt. We'll figure this out together. I won't let them hurt you. Lyra's eyes softened, and she looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. You don't understand, Jack. This is bigger than anything you've ever faced. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Jack sat down next to her, trying to make her see that he wasn't going to back down. I don't care who they are. You're here, and I'm not going to just let them take you. We'll find a way to keep you safe. Lyra stared at him for a long moment, her gaze searching his face, as if trying to decide if he was serious. I don't have a choice, do I? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. All right, I'll stay for now, but we need to leave soon. It's only a matter of time before they track me down. Jack's mind was spinning. He had no plan, no idea where to go, but at least they were in this together. Jack knew he couldn't back out now. He wasn't the kind of person to leave someone in need, and Lyra needed him. As they sat there, Jack's phone rang again. This time, he was prepared for the worst. He picked it up and saw another unknown number. His heart raced as he answered it. "Mr. Jack Wilson," a cold voice said. "You've been given a warning. Do not try to interfere with the Zorth Empire's business. Lyra is coming with us, whether you like it or not. You have 24 hours to return her, or the consequences will be severe." Jack's blood ran cold. He held the phone tightly, trying to keep his composure. "Who are you?" he demanded. "Do you want with her? You don't need to know anything more?" The voice on the other end replied. "Just remember, the clock is ticking." The call ended abruptly, leaving Jack staring at the phone in shock. His grip tightened on the device, his mind racing. The warning was clear. Lyra's enemies weren't playing around. They've found us, Jack said quietly, his voice shaking. "Oh, we need to act fast. We don't have much time." Lyra stood up and walked over to the window, looking out at the city below. "We need to leave," she said, her tone serious. "I've made a lot of enemies, Jack. They won't stop until they have me, and they'll use anything to get what they want." Jack didn't know what to do next, but he knew one thing. They couldn't stay here. If they were going to escape, they had to do it now. He glanced at Lyra, her face set with determination. She might be a princess, but she was also a persona. A person who was scared, just like anyone else. And Jack wasn't going to let her face this alone. "I'll pack some things," Jack said. "You should do the same. We're getting out of here." Lyra nodded, but her expression softened. "Thank you, Jack. I didn't expect you to be so brave." Jack felt a strange warmth in his chest. He wasn't brave. He was just doing what anyone would do for someone they cared about. As Jack packed a small bag, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to change forever. He was no longer just a guy with a boring job and a small apartment. He was now part of something much larger, something he couldn't fully understand yet. And as terrifying as it was, he wasn't going to walk away from it. Lyra was no longer a stranger who'd knocked on his door. She was someone who needed his help. And no matter what happened next, Jack was determined to protect her. He glanced up at her, who was standing by the door waiting for him. Her face was calm, but her eyes were full of emotion, a silent plea for help. Jack took a deep breath and walked over to her. "Let's get out of here," Jack said, putting his bag over his shoulder. Lyra nodded and turned to the door. As they stepped into the hallway, Jack couldn't help but feel that they were walking into the unknown. But one thing was certain. He wasn't going to let her face it alone. Jack's heart raced as they quickly gathered their things. His apartment, once a peaceful haven, had become a dangerous place. The warning call from the mysterious voice still echoed in his mind. Lyra had already packed her belongings, and Jack could see the worry in her eyes. She was trying to stay calm, but Jack could tell she was just as scared as he was. They had to leave, and they had to leave now. The city outside the window looked normal, as if nothing was wrong. But Jack knew better. He knew they couldn't stay here. The Zorth Empire was watching, and if they didn't act quickly, they'd be caught in the middle of something much bigger than themselves. Jack grabbed his keys and took one last look around the apartment. It felt like everything was changing in an instant. He had no idea where they would go or what they would do, but he knew one thing. He wasn't going to let Lyra down. "Are you ready?" Jack asked, turning to Lyra. She nodded, but her face was pale. "We need to be careful," she said, her voice low. "I don't know how they've found us so quickly, but they'll be watching every move we make. We can't trust anyone." Jack nodded, his mind already racing with plans. He had no experience with anything like this. He was just a regular guy, but now he had to think like someone who was being hunted. It felt overwhelming, but he had to focus. Lyra needed him. "We'll figure it out," Jack said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. "Let's go." They left the apartment and stepped into the cool morning air. The city around them was busy as usual, people walking down the street, cars honking, and the usual noise of a bustling urban area. But Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. He kept his eyes moving, scanning the crowds for anything that looked out of place. Lyra walked beside him, her gaze fixed straight ahead, as if she was looking for something only she could see. "So, where are we going?" Jack asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "Do you have somewhere safe?" Lyra looked at him, her expression serious. "I have a contact. Someone who can help." but it's not going to be easy. I'll have to leave the city and go to a place that's far away from here." Jack was relieved to hear that she had a plan, but the idea of leaving the city was intimidating. He didn't know where they were going or how they would get there. But right now, it didn't matter. They had to move. "Let's do it," Jack said. "Where do we start?" Lyra gave him a small smile. "Follow me." They walked quickly, blending in with the crowd, but Jack couldn't shake the feeling that every person they passed was somehow watching them. His heart beat faster with every step. It felt like they were walking in a game of cat and mouse, with no idea who the cat was or when it would strike. Jack had always been a creature of habit, but now everything was different. They were no longer just two people going about their day, they were fugitives. After what felt like an eternity, they arrived at a small cafe on the outskirts of the city. It was tucked away on a quiet street, with a faded sign hanging above the door. Led Jack inside, and they sat down at a table in the corner, away from the other customers. Jack tried to act casual, but he couldn't help but feel tense. He kept his eyes on the door, waiting for something to happen. A few minutes later, a man walked in. He was tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a long coat that made him look like he had stepped out of a spy movie. He scanned the room quickly, then walked over to their table and sat down without a word. "This is Kale," Lyra said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "He's someone I trust. He can help us." Kale gave Jack a nod, his eyes sharp and calculating. "You're the human who's been keeping the princess safe?" he asked, his tone blunt. Jack felt a surge of heat in his chest. "I'm just trying to help," he said. "What's going on? Why are they after her?" Kale looked around the cafe, his expression tense. "It's not just about Lyra. The Zorith Empire is in a state of unrest. There are factions within the Empire that want to take control. Lyra's father, Emperor Zorith, has powerful enemies, and they'll stop at nothing to get to her. They want to use her to make a move against her father. They find her, it's not just her life at risk, it's the fate of the entire Empire." Jack stared at Kale, his mind trying to process the information. "So you're saying they want to control the Empire by using her?" Kale nodded grimly. "Exactly. And if they find out where she is, they'll come after her with everything. They have. You're not just protecting her, you're protecting the future of the entire galaxy." Jack felt the weight of Kale's words settle on his shoulders. This wasn't just a runaway princess story. This was something bigger, something that could change the entire balance of power in the galaxy. And Jack was right in the middle of it. "What do we do now?" Jack asked, his voice shaking slightly. Kale leaned forward, his voice low. "We move quickly. I've arranged transportation for you both. It's not safe here. We need to leave the city and head to a secure location. But we have one advantage they don't. Know you're working with us yet." Lyra looked at Kale, her eyes filled with uncertainty. "Are you sure we can trust him?" Kale met her gaze, his expression unwavering. "You have no choice, Lyra. We need to move, or it's all over." Jack could see the fear in Lyra's eyes, but he could also see her determination. She wasn't going to let herself be used. She was going to fight, just like Jack was. "All right," Jack said, taking a deep breath. "Let's do it. I'll follow your lead." Kale stood up, his movements quick and decisive. "Good, time to get moving." They all stood, and Jack followed. Kale and Lyra out of the cafe. As they walked down the street, Jack's heart was pounding in his chest. He didn't know what was coming next, but he knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The ride was long and uncomfortable. Jack couldn't help but keep looking over his shoulder, even though there was nothing to see. The streets had been crowded as they left the city, but now the farther they traveled, the more isolated they became. The car Kale had arranged for them was a small, unmarked vehicle, designed to blend in and avoid attention. The silence in the car was thick with tension, and Jack could feel it pressing down on him. Lyra sat next to him, her face calm, but Jack could tell she was thinking about something else. Wasn't sure what she was going through, but he could sense her unease. They were running from an empire, after all. Jack had no experience with this kind of life, but he knew one thing for sure. Everything was changing. They had no idea how deep the danger went. Kale was driving, his eyes on the road, focused and quiet. Jack had never seen anyone so calm under pressure. He couldn't figure out if Kale was just used to this life, or if he was hiding his own fears. Either way, it was clear that Cale was the only one with a plan. Jack had to trust him, even though he didn't fully understand what was happening. "Where are we going?" Jack finally asked, breaking the silence. He had been trying to stay quiet, but the questions were building in his mind. "What's this safe place you keep talking about?" Cale glanced at him quickly before turning his attention back. "To the road. We're heading to a location outside the city," he replied, his voice calm but firm. "It's a safe house, far from prying eyes. It's been used by people in hiding before, and it's the only place we can be sure the Empire won't find us right away." Jack nodded, trying to process the information. He still had so many questions. He couldn't shake the thought that they were being pulled deeper into something that was way out of his league. But one thing was clear, he was in this now. There was no going back. After what felt like hours, the car finally slowed down. They were no longer on the busy streets, but on a narrow road surrounded by trees. The area looked quiet, almost peaceful. Jack couldn't help but wonder why a place like this would be considered safe. It seemed too peaceful, too normal. It didn't make sense. Cale turned onto a dirt path that led to a small cabin hidden in the woods. It was old, with peeling paint and overgrown weeds, but it looked like it could provide the privacy they needed. The cabin was isolated, with no sign of anyone else around. Jack felt a sense of relief, but it was short-lived. He knew this wasn't the end. This was just a temporary stop. Cale parked the car and turned off the engine. "We'll stay here for a while," he said, his voice low. "It's safe for now, but we need to keep moving once we're settled. The Empire's reach is long. They won't stop looking for you, Lyra." Lyra didn't say anything at first. She just stared out the window, her face unreadable. Jack could tell she was thinking about her family, about the Empire, about the life she'd left behind. But now, she was here, and Jack was doing everything he could to protect her. He didn't know what would happen next, but he wasn't going to let her face it alone. "We should get inside," Cale said, breaking the silence. "The place is safe, but we can't stay out in the open for too long." They all got out of the car and walked toward the cabin. Jack could hear the crunch of gravel under their feet, the only sound in the still air. As they reached the door, Cale turned to Lyra. "Are you all right?" Cale asked, his voice soft for the first time. Jack had never seen Cale show any emotion, but now there was a hint of concern in his tone. Lyra nodded slowly, though Jack could still see the worry in her eyes. "I'm fine," she said, though her voice didn't sound convincing. She wasn't fine. No one could be after everything that had happened. Cale opened the door and led them inside. The cabin was small but comfortable with simple furniture, and a warm fire crackling in the hearth. It wasn't much, but it was better than the streets. They sat down on the worn couch, and for the first time in hours, Jack allowed himself to relax. He was exhausted, both physically and mentally. As tired as he was, he couldn't sleep. His mind kept racing, trying to figure out what to do next. "We need to plan our next move," Cale said, his voice breaking through Jack's thoughts. "We can't just wait around here. The Empire's forces will be closing in soon." Lyra looked at him, her face determined. "I won't let them use me," she said, her voice steady. "I won't go back. I'll fight if I have to." Jack could see the fire in her eyes, the same determination that had made her ask for help in the first place. She wasn't just some princess running away from her responsibilities. She was fighting for her freedom, for her future, and Jack was with her, no matter what it took. "We'll figure it out," Jack said, his voice firm. "We'll make sure you're safe, I promise." Cale nodded, though Jack could see the doubt in his eyes. "I hope you're right," he said, quietly. "But the reality is, we're running out of time. We need to find a way to make sure you're protected for good." Jack knew Cale was right. Time was running out, and they were in deeper than they'd ever imagined. But as he looked at Lyra, he knew there was no turning back. They had come too far, and there was no way they could stop now. Lyra stood up and walked over to the window, her eyes scanning the quiet woods outside. Jack watched her for a moment before walking over to stand beside her. "We'll be all right," Jack said softly, trying to reassure her. "I won't let them hurt you." Lyra looked at him, her expression softer now. I don't deserve your help, Jack, she said quietly. I've dragged you into something you don't understand. I never wanted this for you. Jack shook his head. You don't have to say that. I'm here because I want to be. I'm not going to let you face this alone. For a moment, they stood there in silence, the weight of everything pressing down on them. But Jack knew that they couldn't afford to dwell on what might come next. They had to keep moving forward. And for the first time in days, Jack felt a small glimmer of hope. They weren't alone. They had each other. The morning sun filtered through the small cabin's windows, casting long shadows on the floor. Jack had barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, the same thought kept racing through his mind: what's next? He stood by the window, looking out at the quiet woods surrounding them. It had been hours since they had arrived at the cabin, and so far, there had been no sign of danger. But Jack knew better than to relax. The warning they had received was still fresh in his mind, and the Empire's agents were probably closing. And by now, he couldn't let his guard down, not for a second. Lyra was sitting at the small kitchen table, sipping on a cup of water. She looked calm on the outside, but Jack could see the tension in her posture, the way her fingers tightened around the glass. It was clear she was just as worried as he was, but she wasn't showing it. Jack admired her strength, but it made him feel even more helpless. He wanted to do something, anything, to take away her fear. Cale was still pacing around the cabin, his expression serious. He had been planning their next move all night. Jack had never seen anyone so focused, but he couldn't help but feel that even Cale didn't have all the answers. So, what now? Jack finally asked, turning from the window to face Cale. Cale stopped pacing and looked at him. We stay here for now. The Empire's agents will be looking for us, but they don't know where we are yet. We need to wait until nightfall to move. That's our best chance to avoid detection. Jack nodded, trying to steady his nerves. He had no idea how Cale was so calm in a situation like this. Jack was used to living a quiet life, where the biggest worry was a late rent check. But now, every minute felt like it was a race against time. Lyra stood up and walked over to the window, joining Jack in staring out at the woods. You're not safe here forever, Cale, she said softly. We need to make sure the Empire doesn't find us again. We need a place to hide for good. Cale's face tightened. I know. I've been thinking about that. But we're not going to find safety easily. The Empire's forces are too strong. Of the galaxy, if they have to. The only way to stay hidden is to keep moving. Lyra turned to face him, her eyes determined. We keep running. Cale didn't answer immediately, his eyes scanning the floor as if looking for the right words. Finally, he spoke. If that's what it takes. Jack could see the frustration building in Lyra's face. She didn't want to run anymore. She wanted to stand her ground, to fight back. And Jack understood that. He didn't want to be hiding forever either, but he also knew they had to be careful. He couldn't let their anger or fear cloud their judgment. Maybe we don't have to keep running, Jack said, his voice quieter. Then he intended. Maybe there's another way. Cale raised an eyebrow. And what's that? We don't just hide, Jack said, walking toward him. We fight back, find a way to bring down the Empire's power, not just hide from it. For a moment, the cabin was silent. Cale stared at Jack, then glanced at Lyra. It was clear that Jack's words had struck a chord. Lyra looked at Jack, her face softening just a little. You're not wrong, Cale said after a long pause. But it's not as easy as it sounds. The Empire is huge. It controls planets, systems, and armies. If we go up against them, we'll need more than just willpower. We'll need allies. And right now, we don't have any. We can find allies, Jack said. There are people who are against the Empire. We just have to know where to look. Lyra turned to Jack, her eyes searching his face. You're willing to risk everything for this? For me, Jack didn't hesitate. I'm already in this, Lyra. I'm not just going to sit here while they come after you. I'll do whatever it takes to help you. Her eyes softened, and for the first time since they'd met, she looked vulnerable. I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't want to drag you into it. Jack stepped forward, his gaze steady. You didn't drag me anywhere. I'm here because I want to be. We're in this together now. Kale cleared his throat, breaking the moment. It's clear you both want to do something about the Empire. But we need a plan, and we need to move quickly. The longer we stay here, the more likely we are to be found. Lyra nodded. Kale's right, but we need to make sure we don't make any more mistakes. We've already attracted enough attention. Jack didn't say anything for a moment. He was thinking about everything they'd discussed about the Empire, about their escape, and about what they were really up against. This wasn't just about running or hiding. It was about standing up, fighting back, and trying to make a difference in a galaxy that felt too big to fight. So what's the next step? Jack asked. Kale looked at him and then at Lyra. We have to contact someone who can help us. Someone who has the resources to fight the Empire. But I'm warning you, it won't be easy. The Empire has eyes everywhere. Who do you have in mind? Lyra asked, her voice low but filled with determination. I know a person who might be able to help, Kale replied. They've been fighting the Empire for years, but getting to them won't be simple. We'll have to move fast, and we'll have to trust each other. Jack looked at Lyra, her face serious but full of hope. She was willing to fight, to take a stand. And for the first time since he'd met her, Jack realized that maybe they had a chance. Maybe they could do something about all of this. All right, Jack said. Let's do it. Let's fight back. Lyra nodded, a faint smile tugging at her lips. We're not just running anymore. We're taking control of our fate. Kale gave them both a sharp look, then nodded. Good. Let's get ready. They didn't know what would happen next, but one thing was certain. They were no longer just hiding from the Empire. They were going to fight. And whatever it took, Jack was ready to face whatever came next, as long as he had Lyra by his side.